Hi, I'm Jeff Todd, CEO at Prevent Blindness. And welcome to our Focus on Eye Health Expert Series. Today, I have joining me a true expert in vision and eye health, Sherry Williams, a friend and colleague of 20 years. Sherry was the CEO at Prevent Blindness for, what was it, Sherry, 30 some years altogether?
35 years, yes.
35 years. Well, thanks for joining me today, Sherry.
Thank you, Jeff.
So first off, we're here today to talk about geographic atrophy, and we asked you to join us because you know very personally about this condition. Geographic atrophy, as you know, is the advanced form of dry AMD, kind of simplistically. But could you start by telling us a little bit about how your mom's doing and sharing a bit about her experience with this devastating condition?
Well, my mom was diagnosed with early stage AMD probably around 10 years ago. And of course, you look to see through regular comprehensive eye exams if it's progressing to the wet form or to the dry form called geographic atrophy or GA. And about 2 years ago, it was clear that hers was advancing to this more serious dry form where parts of the retina just die. They atrophy and they die. And how she's doing is that in the last 2 years, it's progressed pretty rapidly, and her visual acuity has diminished. Her ability to see without additional light, her comfort in driving has almost diminished to a zero, just going to the post office and around our neighborhood, which the population of the town she lives in is about 100. So she, knows the side streets and so forth, but she's willingly getting ready to take insurance off her car and just kind of keep it in the garage at this point in time. Of course, my dad passed away in 2011, so there's not a caregiver within the home. And that, of course, has her thinking about, well, where will I go to be cared for? What facility might work for me and when? Do I want to be cared for at home? She has wonderful friends and family. My sisters are nearby, and they've been just terrific, bringing her into town, into doctor appointments, adding her stuff to their grocery list, and being very, very helpful. But that is something that she admits to me is very difficult for her too. She really hates to ask for help, and it really makes her feel embarrassed to accept help. I live several states away, so I'm not able to be helpful in that way, but I certainly am providing her ongoing support. I meet with her doctor on the phone, her ophthalmologist on the phone, and get updates from him every 6 months so that I'm able to help provide her that support for her treatment and what she can expect happening in the near and far future with her vision.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Sherry, as we both know, and I've shared with you that I have there's certainly AMD within my family as well, and this is a condition that does have a hereditary component. Do you think much about that, and what
Yes.
does that mean for you?
Yes. My first introduction to age-related macular degeneration, had never heard the word before, was right about the time I joined Prevent Blindness back in 1985, and my grandpa, Nick Palkovich, my mom's father, was diagnosed with macular degeneration. At that time, there was no treatment. There weren't even the vitamin supplements, the AREDS or the AREDS formula, the age-related eye disease formula that was developed by the National Eye Institute study, didn't even exist. So all I knew at that point, and what grandpa knew and what my mom knew, is that he had macular degeneration, and if he lived long enough, it would progress to blindness, to vision loss, severe vision loss. And sure enough, grandpa lived to be 93 and did have many adjustments in his life, moving from the farm, losing, of course, his car, having to live in the small town where we grew up, navigating the community, moving to an assisted care facility, etc. And I'll never forget when he passed away in 2001. I called him in the assisted living facility. I did regularly to check in with him, and he knew he was very sick. And he said, "Now, all these times we talk, Sherry, and I've asked you to find a cure for my macular degeneration. You haven't been able to do it." And he said, "In my long life, I I've been through many things, and the one thing that has made the most negative impact is this vision loss and my inability to see faces and to read." Now, my grandpa went through a lot in his life. He was one of 18 children. He quit school in eighth grade to help support his family. He was in a tuberculosis sanatorium for 2 years and lost a lung. He lived through the Great Depression. I mean, this guy had a lot of things happen to him. And this, having age related macular degeneration without any hope for any cure at the point he had it, was the most impactful for him. And that made me, want to fight even harder to make sure that our work at Prevent Blindness and that community awareness and supportive research was there to address this growing need, especially with the population living longer.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely something that, I think about a lot as well. I've been with Prevent Blindness for 20 years, and I came on right before the treatments for wet AMD came around.
Yeah.
But, and that's been great. We've seen a lot of progress. There's still a long way to go. But as you certainly know, this dry form of AMD and
Yes.
geographic atrophy, there still is no treatment for that. However, there is hope around the corner, and I think we're both
Yes.
crossing our fingers and our hearts and everything else that we'll see a treatment very soon. What does that mean for you?
Well, Jeff, I need to thank you and Prevent Blindness for your support and education in the community for the treatment for geographic atrophy, and for participating in educating and gathering folks for the clinical trials, and for working hand in hand with the pharmaceutical companies that are seeking a cure. I know some are on the horizon that look very hopeful for even early next year. And when I call my mom to update her on what you've shared with me or what I've learned about, she just says, "Hurry, hurry." She's taking the ARIDS formula, but that is kind of run its course with her right now. And she needs to be looking toward an actual medical treatment for her GA. What's happening with her is that her retinal lining, the retinal epithelial lining, is starting to pucker because of pieces of dead cells that come from this atrophy. And she's got some wavy side vision, and that will only move more toward the central vision if this new, possibly injectable treatment is not given to stop the progression of that atrophy of those cells. So we're on sort of a time clock here. She's very hopeful. She's delighted. Up until maybe last year, there wasn't the kind of advancement in research that was looking to come our way in time. But now she's 86, and there's hope. She feels that she will be able to continue to enjoy reading, watching TV, seeing the faces of her grandchildren, her great grandchildren, for years to come.
Yeah, that's great. We're certainly we're in a really innovative time as it relates to eye care, not just for AMD, but for other conditions. And that's one of the things I find fascinating right now. There's so many options coming down the pipe
Yeah.
for all sorts of eye conditions. So Sherry, I wanted to kind of wrap up asking you to put your public health hat back on. Certainly in your role as CEO at Prevent Blindness Ohio, I know personally that you're very passionate about the importance of data and understanding the problem. Recently, a new study has come out through the CDC that Prevent Blindness has been involved with. This shows a higher rate of AMD than previously thought. We know that in 2019, almost 20 million Americans had some form of AMD. But one of the exciting things about this data is that it also it provided it at both the state and county level. Can you talk a little bit based on your experience about how
Right.
important that level of data is?
Well, when I was CEO of Prevent Blindness, the Ohio affiliate, our initial inspiration for really getting community awareness out was a study that Prevent Blindness and the National Eye Institute and the CDC collaborated on called Vision Problems in the United States, which revealed the four leading causes of vision loss in adults, and AMD was one of them. This new study has sort of trumped the initial study from around 2003, 2004, and that number has increased by almost 3 times the amount of AMD. And as you said, about 20 million Americans now have AMD, with about 1.5 million being in the late stages and 1 million having this geographic atrophy like my mom had, and my grandfather, I'm assuming, had as well. Um, the use of data, or the availability of data, is extremely important in sounding the alarm to the community, to our state health departments, to our departments of aging, to our state legislators to use in forming public policy. Because unless you really know what's going on at the very lowest level of the community, whether it be city, county, it's very difficult to influence any action in a way that's based on evidence. So having the vision and eye health surveillance system that Prevent Blindness has been involved in, supporting the actual white papers and journal articles that Prevent Blindness has such deep involvement in public health research is critical, along with the scientific research where we're looking at medicines and treatments for AMD, and especially the form of AMD, geographic atrophy. Both have to go hand in hand, because getting the results from the lab bench to the patient are really where it's at.
Yeah. Well, thank you, my friend, for joining me today. I look forward to us celebrating some advances on this really soon, and hopefully that's just the first of many.
Keep up the good work, Prevent Blindness.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you.